Sammy Seung-min Lee was born in Seoul, South Korea, and lives in Denver. She approaches art making as ritual, gathering found materials, deconstructing their original intention, and finally piecing them together to build new meanings. Shaped by her nomadic youth and bicultural identity, she creates assemblages that bridge spatial, temporal, and socio-cultural divides. In addition to her solo exhibition here at MCA, Lee has had recent presentations at museums and galleries in South Korea, across Colorado, and beyond. She has held residencies at Redline Contemporary Art Center, Mass MoCA, and Anderson Ranch, and is a recipient of fellowships from the Joan Mitchell Foundation and the Fulbright U.S. Scholar Program. In conversation with Sammy this evening is MCA Denver curator Leilani Lynch. Leilani has organized numerous museum exhibitions at MCA, including the 3 that are currently on view, as well as movements towards freedom and solo exhibitions with Gala Porras Kim, Stephen Yazzie, Ken Gun Min, and Anna Sue Kalarkis. So please join me in welcoming Sammy and Leilani.
Thank you, Anthony. Welcome, everyone. Hi, Sammy. Excited to have you here tonight and to dig into this exhibition that we're sitting in. It's really wonderful to be sitting amongst the artwork because we can also kind of point to it. And hopefully people had a chance to walk through the show before starting the talk. But I thought we would start with the origin story of the show. We actually met prior to your trip back to Seoul around the Redline exhibition that we had in 2023, which was a group exhibition celebrating that residency program. But this exhibition kind of kicked off as you were returning back from a year in Seoul as part of the Fulbright Fellowship. And so I wanted to ask if you could talk about that experience a little bit, but also what made you, so Seoul is the place of your birth, what made you want to apply for that fellowship?
Yeah, I've been fantasizing for a long time. I frequently visited Seoul for work and for fun, and within that limited time, you kind of have a same routine of all your favorite things to do. But I wanted to live there. And also wanted to, it's been a long time, kind of fantasy of me actually wanting to take my kids there and have them, have a connection to the country too. So I wanted to live there, return there as someone who also make art there too. There is an amazing place that I did the short-term residency. It's an old industrial maze that had a motto of, if you bring a drawing, we can build anything like even tank. And that was kind of the place that is actually going through the displacement at the current time too. But that's kind of basically redeveloped and reconstructed post-war torn Korea too. So it was kind of like legendary to me, and it is literally little tiny shops in a maze that you walk in one side of the maze with a drawing, then you go through meeting all these artisans and you come out with like prototype schedule to deliver to your, So there is like a lot of layered kind of fantasy. It's keep growing and growing, and I'm like, I really wanted to go back to live there and reconnect, and that was kind of the starting point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of revisiting and retracing a lot of the places that you lived when you were growing up there, and kind of recognizing those differences or the synchronicities is kind of what started our conversation about the show. And I thought maybe we could talk about the title of the exhibition, which is Becoming Motherland. So instead of returning to Motherland or something about just talking about a return, it actually speaks about it in an active sense. And I know we went back and forth about like ideas for a title, but could you talk about becoming?
Yeah.
And then we'll get into motherhood, motherland too.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like I know you are kind of
I am
entering
becoming motherland.
about to motherhood and landing at the motherland, but we kind of came up with this baby's name together, right? Because you mentioned motherland, and I'm like, Leilani, something sexier. But also, I've never really felt, I mean, motherland, it sounded kind of arrived, point of arrival. Very static, as though I felt like always my attitude toward my own identity is constantly evolving. So when we're just trying many different variety of name, when we added becoming, it just felt perfect. So that's how the becoming motherland of just, it's not fixed place, it is present and future, and it's changing, that shift. Yeah.
And I also thought it was interesting that you chose the word motherland is distinct from home. It has a connotation of like a place that raised you or where you might have come from. But it has, I think in this exhibition, there's a number of works that get at that association with motherhood, like your own mother or your role as a mother. And I was wondering if you could talk about that tension and that connection.
Yeah, I mean, that is like loaded, in our college, in psychology 101, we all kind of, it's all mom's fault, right? But the connection to mother, and to me, there was a point that I really thought that, motherland, is it a place? Is it a person? What is it? How is it really different to your home, And motherland is definitely biological, as you cannot choose your mother, it's your mother. I was born there. But I feel like while I was living in the United States for 32 years until I went to Fulbright, I was constantly making, this place my home. So that was kind of perspective, the difference between like motherland and and home. And without talking about my mother, it's incomplete to talk about motherland. Like I said, there was one point that my mother was briefly living in North Carolina where I had no connection to. But whenever I visit, because of her presence, I felt at home. So it kind of gives emotional kind of home just because she's there. So while I was living in Korea, actually I took one of my son, younger one, Pierce, and I also invited my mother to join. And I don't want to kind of go on a segue too much, but I'm not kind of too dramatic person, but there was a lot of signal that it was going to be kind of magical year for me to be there, because I shared briefly at the opening remark that I left August 1st to go back to Korea after 32 years. Then I realized I arrived in US August 1st. So there was really magical kind of continuation. And having my mom there, living there, we had this confusion. We living together. She behaved like, still in her 40s, and I acted like teenager. So there's a lot of that kind of time traveling happening there too. And also I somehow, it's a serendipitous thing, but I ended up living in the neighborhood that I went to school for my son's school. So a lot of things are just keep unfolding very and I was giving a lot of meaning to all of those because I went there to search for certain answers that I thought I went back. So I was kind of in heightened state of just kind of constantly looking for how it was going to be unfolded.
Right.
Yeah, so I felt like I was looking for cue why I had to return and why am I living in Colorado. Sometimes that felt very random too because I don't really have like any relative or any like school or I didn't have any kind of personal connection to this place. So I was trying to really find those answers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with something like a year-long fellowship, everything becomes research. And I think the kind of field research, you could call it, that you've done has made its way into some of the works. Like I'm thinking about these 3 pieces on the wall over here called Nagging, which incorporate photos and video from, the public transportation in Seoul. But maybe you could, like talking about mothers and the sort of revisiting the motherland.
Yes.
This is a work that really gets into that.
Yeah. So my mom, like I said already, like, I was behaving like teenager and she was acting as if she still has to, tell me a lot of, things. And I was, coming back from work in city bus, and the LED signs that usually just typically saying like what the next station is and what time it is. Usually those are kind of circulating those, several options. But that particular township bus. Had a lot of information like, oh, do you have enough fund on your Metro card? Do you know where to charge it? Please be mindful of other people, not speak loudly or not be on the phone, and don't get up until bus is completely stopped. And like, while I was just kind of mindlessly watching that letter circulating, just my mother overlapped. and then I was looking for, I came to Korea. Korea is my motherland. Korea is really like my mom in many ways. So that was one way to show that connection. It was stressful, like, being fully grown up, having my own child to live under my mom and her kind of tracing back to those time and saying all those things. But it was a nice cathartic moment for me to turn that into an art project. And we're kind of jokingly said, if that one actually gets, acquired by somebody, it will come with all my mom's nagging preloaded. And maybe you can change it to your mom's nagging, once you get it. But
Customize.
Yeah. But heard that a lot. Yeah.
And I mean, I think you've been thinking about motherhood since before this trip, obviously.
Yeah.
But and not to put too much on the spot, because I know your sons are in the audience. But I'm curious about the experience of living in Korea with your own children. But thinking about these older works, Mama Bots, kind of the way in which your role as an artist and a mother have kind of intersected.
Just because, like my works are autobiographical and very personal, and I am living my life and processing a lot of questions, and I am making art, and that's a way to process those So Mama Bots, it's kind of very natural. All my works are showing different parts of my life, and those 3, it's a triptych, were created over pandemic time. I had my children at home with me, and especially younger one. He, in a way, collaborated because I was working on a project, and I had my layout, and he had his intervention, coming and changing it around. And we're watching a lot of, I'm raising 2 boys, a lot of kind of robotic animations. And I was keep thinking about this labor of motherhood, just endless, like repetitive, labor. And also it's a very intimate labor, but yes, if there's a robotic, diaper changer and all those things, I was thinking about those very intimate and personal labor I will be readily, it was a conflict. I'll rather, if there's a robot who can do it well, I'll kind of give those most precious, intimate labors away too, So, I thought a lot about mother's labor. Those were born. The one on the right is actually mama bots with attributing to my mom and about her hometown and my sense of home reflected in there. And the one in the black one is the current mama bot showing my motherhood. The one on the left is like apprentice like ma and bot, which is talking about the age when I came to the state, becoming independent away from mom. So it's just 3 of mama bot just kind of in dialogue, about the motherhood that I was experiencing through my mom and myself, going through it.
They're kind of generational.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that they also speak to the journey of coming here and navigating and creating a sense of home, which is a nice segue to talk about the ways in which you reference travel a lot in your work. I think in a lot of ways it makes sense, thinking a lot about the immigrant or the diasporic experience is about a journey.
Yeah.
But you choose to kind of go at that in a way that really floats within this in-between space, which is the aerospace, like aerial views, and also the airport through different kind of like allusions to luggage and crates and these units that we take with us. I'm curious what keeps drawing you to the airport, which is a third space, which we talked about as a way of thinking about the diasporic experience. And in this show, you have a number of works that reference that. What keeps bringing you back there? Or why is that an effective, evocative place?
Person who experienced diaspora, that's the flight is really the way that I crossed the border and entered. And while you're in mid-air, in flight, I actually love being in the airplane because you really feel like you're fully yourself. And before, you didn't even have like a Wi-Fi. Nobody can really tap into you. Like you're just fully there. And no matter who sits next to you, you just kind of attain that 6 inches width. And you really feel that in-between space physically and thinking about that belonging of whether I really fully physically belong somewhere in that space. You're really in between different languages, different time zones. It really confuses you, and that is where I actually really feel that's where I exist. That's why I have a lot of reference to flight, and because I went back and forth so many times, but each time I leave, I pack my bag as if I'm not coming back and really go through the editorial process of what can I not part with. So each time I think about the very first time when I left, and I brought a lot of silly things, but that was so serious as a 16 years old. I cannot possibly live without this, and brought it. And then you're constantly thinking about what you left behind too. So it's I know you were going to ask me about belongings too, but
Yeah,
it kind
we
of
can
goes
get into
into
it.
that. So I am thinking a lot about where I belong by going through my belongings. So I'm talking about two meanings of feeling and objects of my belonging every time I, go through those and pack. And I'm very natural at thinking everything in that 62 inches, width and height and depth, and packing it as efficiently I can each time I travel, and packing it everything in that international weight limit of 70 pounds. So all those units, spatial units, are very, very natural. It's a second nature to me to just kind of, bring stuff back
Getting
and forth.
smaller and smaller too as regulations change.
I know. Yeah, so those kind of units are, what inspired me to make the crates, or even that's actually direct belongings that were luggage contents that were poured out.
The
and
topography models. Mhm.
and placed into the vacuum seal pack, and all the airs are just sucked out. Then your belongings are making this terrain like a landscape, and that becoming kind of land mass itself. So those are the what's in the hallway, that those belongings becoming the landscape. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and building on this idea, or the wordplay between belonging and belongings, which you get into, and there's a lot of wordplay in your work. But a few days ago, we came across this book that a new text was coming about unbelonging.
That's right.
And a lot of times when we speak about an immigrant experience, there is this sort of yearning or a search for a feeling of belonging. But what if belonging was not the goal? Or I guess curious to, oh gosh, okay, this is a terrible pun, but to unpack that a little bit of just what, in terms of your work, do you feel like belonging is something that you're searching for, or do you also, like this writer was talking about, kind of want to push back against that idea for form new senses? Because I think belonging can imply that you want to leave behind everything and kind of just belong to the place where you landed. But perhaps you want to carry some of that with you, which you talk about.
Yeah. I mean, again, when you're in flight, that's where I really intensely push myself, do I really have to be belonging to a singular place, right? But I think your body, it is so natural as you're, feeling that disorientation in flight. Body wants to kind of yearns for that place. And I think that was one of the questions that I wanted to answer when I went back to Korea for Fulbright. And I returned knowing that, yes, I do not belong there. And there, it is, I'm still in that process of, being okay with the unbelonging. There is a part of my life I thought, yes, I'm okay. And I saw wave, and here is this side of land is Korea, and here, and the water would take me back and forth, and I just didn't want it to be drowning in the water. I wanted to. It would be really cool if I can surf, and just kind of go back and forth, looking really cool, and navigating those two places, but I don't think it's a one-time thing that I could be really free and be okay not belonging, because there's a lot of kind of perceptions from others too that reinforces that maybe it's not okay to not belong, So it's a daily struggle navigating, and that means I'll get to work on more projects.
Yes. Well, I think a work like this microphone sculpture here, which is called Complex Silence, speaks about that kind of going back and forth, that experience of being back and forth and between. I know this was, you're well I should say, for your work using paper. But for this exhibition, you really wanted to make a kind of monumental sculpture or larger scale sculpture, and you integrated sound, which isn't playing right now because of the talk. But maybe you could talk a little bit about this piece in particular, because it's pretty layered.
Yeah. Complex silence is complex. Every time I stare at it, I'm like, it's layered, and my friend Jane and I were talking a lot about that as a kind of a starting point, or for my practice too. I kind of packed a lot in there, and it was, visually simple because there was a sound component of it. It was actually kind of intuitive to layer all those things in there. And there's a soundscape. There are several places in Seoul. All those sound samples are from Seoul while I was living there. And those are kind of some triggering sound that was kind of summon certain memories. So those places acting like a portal, but out of those, places there is sound of subway that's running. So it is like really a journey, and it's a cyclical, and you're hearing different sound of different places. And there's also a narrative, little didactic narrative that stay with me for a long time. It's an old tale that I heard. I don't even know the source where I heard it, when I heard it, but it's a story about a beggar who pretends to be an artist to earn shelter and food from a patron, and he just live off of this person until this patron asks for demands for artwork, like, I want to see you work. And he's obviously never trained as an artist, but at that moment, there's a lot of layer guilt trip, and he wants to, do whatever he can for this person who supported him. And he just picks up the brush and make one stroke. He so wholeheartedly using all his energy, chi, and he collapses and dies. And it's just a stroke. So obviously the patron's very kind of agitated and upset, and he's like, throw that away, but keep it in a storage. But later, it gets discovered by a monk who notices it right away, that it's a masterpiece because someone gave whole life into it. So it is a story. The reason why it makes such a big impact is because I felt like, again, I went to Korea looking for that my own brushstroke. And I always see that brushstroke line as a linear. There is a departure and there's a destination. There's a point of arrival. As an immigrant living here, I think that there is a point that I'll be assimilated, be accepted fully. I'll feel this place as a home. Like, I always look for this linear points of arrival, but again, like many elements in my life in Seoul was magical, and the subway line that I commuted was actually, it was a circulatory one that was looping, and it was a whole, so this narration is repeating, and the sound is looping. So there is that kind of baseline story about, what I was thinking the whole time living there, searching for that light. And also, microphone being that monumental size, but instead of amplifying my voice, it's actually emitting very fainted noise of that with the narration. All those things are kind of the reversed function of a microphone that is that big, like human size. So there's kind of personified, like kind of projection of myself of, I'm talking a lot today, but I'm talking about kind of being silenced, And also the complex silence that actually title comes from novelist, Korean American novelist Chang-rae Lee, and he wrote a lot about complexity of silence in immigrant life, starting from the immigrant children reversing their role as a spokesperson for their parents, translating in English, and psychology of the person who's always speaking for somebody else and not for yourself, and all this added complexity of a cultural difference and all those things making, them silence. So I'm packing a lot of stuff in, and I'm kind of glad that it is just simple, like sculptural shape, but I was just kind of going wild with all those different ideas.
It's also a potent form that, like, we're speaking with microphones. As you said, the purpose of the microphone is to amplify the voice. But in your reflections, it becomes really kind of loaded to have that amplification. But I think it also calls back to the noraebang karaoke culture in Korea, which is in a way sort of where our conversation about this show started, which it was with the video work Moonlight in Colorado, which is playing in the next room, and that kind of speaks to the magic and like the these kind of happenstance moments that you had of discovery before and during your trip. But that work, I mean, the format is based on karaoke and references this song, Moonlight on the Colorado. Do you want to get into it?
Sure. That's kind of the starting point of what, we started conversation. So, like I said already, that I was asking myself, like, why am I here, right? And why did I have to return to Korea? So there was this song called Moonlight on the Colorado. The version that I use is a Slim Whitman's version from 1931. And the song probably came into Korea through like American GIs. And 1971, a Korean singer actually sings the translated version, and it becomes a big hit. To the point that it was so well loved, it makes it into textbook, music in a textbook. And that was my mom's generation. So they love that song. And that instilled this weird utopia kind of fantasy about Colorado. So when I came to Colorado with my husband for his job interview, we were at a hotel in DTC. I was calling my mom, like, Mom, I'm in Colorado. And she said, oh my God. I mean, of course, she said it in Korean, but she said it with such enthusiasm. She was excited that I was in Colorado. So I'm like, And she's like, Colorado is such a beautiful place. So I'm like, okay. And somehow, looking back, I think that her excitement and that shared enthusiasm might have opened up my, as we were considering different place to settle. And I've been living here in Colorado for 19 years. And I was in Seoul wondering, like, how did this happen? Because, as she introduced me, I'm a nomad. I moved so many times. And this living in Denver exceeded my time of my home, Seoul. I left when I was 16. So Colorado, Denver has become, like longer than anywhere. And this is where two of my sons born. So I am trying to really make this my home. So when I listened to the Korean version on YouTube, there are so many replies on under that song by generations of my moms saying, oh, how beautiful. I love to be in Colorado. When I think of America, it's Colorado. I'm like, seriously. and also saying, one person says specifically, and most of them are kind of being very nostalgic of them being that young, listening and enjoying this song in their life, right? So they're missing their pastime and their youthfulness with this song. But basically, they're yearning for a place they've never been to. And they're just yearning for this image. And one person specifically said, I long and miss Colorado as if it's my hometown. So it was such an ironic, I just felt a little bit kind of funny and ironic about me living here for, this many years. And reading all these people's reply, them yearning for Colorado. When I went to Seoul, actually, many of my American friends sending me all this Instagram feed. Oh, when you go to Seoul, you gotta do this. And, so a bunch of reversed kind of, and they're like, they know better than me where to eat and what to buy and what kind of experience they need to, they want me to have. Yeah. So they're kind of living vicariously and they're kind of building their fantasy about living in Seoul too. So that kind of really inspired me to, tackle this, in Korea. So I had this video footage of me on the double-decker bus in a front seat, taking the scenes of navigating through Seoul. And I had a video, I had previous, before I left for Seoul, I had a kind of driving scene down to Durango from here that I took footage. So using that, I wanted to mismatch the image with a lyric. And I also noticed that translation, like I said, the song became popular in Korea 71, and there were very intentional censorship how they translated the word because of the interracial dating and marriage wasn't as common. So definitely the American version is a person longing for another person, loved one in Colorado. But they changed that to kind of yearning for beautiful nature of Colorado. So those kind of gap in discrepancy in translation, I found it really interesting.
Right. I mean, it gets back to kind of like the person and the place.
Yeah.
The mother,
Yeah.
that you were talking about. But I think one of the things that I love about your work is kind of the sense of humor and nostalgia that you get at that is so specific but can zoom right into this kind of diasporic experience, but you do that in this work kind of with creating this sort of funny moment of like this disco room, and then you're hearing both the English and the Korean versions as you walk around the space. It's a little bit disorienting.
Yeah.
But yeah, can you also talk about humor in your work?
Yeah. I mean, I think there are so many funny immigrant jokes and, plenty, right? Disorientation. Yes, I just want to mention that I want people to walk in through two entry points of the karaoke room. We installed the speaker specifically so you could actually hear one song well entering into, this way, and another song, but in the middle where things will mix, right? So that's something that I want people to, I was thinking about, I really want people to understand this, people living, people from diaspora living this in-between space, because we say that a lot. We throw this word of living in liminal space a lot, but I wonder my friends really understand. So it was kind of that approach of yes, and sound gave a lot of, I think it was very effective tool to have them physically, experience that sound mixing. And, I'm trying to answer many life's difficult questions and my approach is, humor because, otherwise it gets too heavy, especially in a current political climate. And it is my own way. So, like I said, I am living in Colorado, embodying my mom's fantasy. That generation. That's kind of like
That's a lot to hold.
yeah, and yeah, and it makes sense now. And I kind of had to deal with that, and I feel good that I really dealt with that. And through making the many different artworks that you see in this space, yeah.
And I should mention that on April 11th and May 9th, we were having some karaoke activations, a couple of upcoming Saturdays. So for those periods of time during the day on those dates, you'll be able to sing karaoke of your own request if you feel like singing together. Because I think part of it is also the social element, right?
Karaoke to me, it's like a private space, but kind of public. So that is also another way of just me investigating in between space. It's a place that you go in and be very expressive, emotional, places catharsis, and all those things I think work really well.
And that's not the only way in which you've kind of invoked community in your work. I know that social practice and community-based events, especially around food, are a big part of your practice. And I just wanted to mention and kind of talk about this dumpling diaspora work, which is a flock of 500 ceramic dumplings gathered on the wall here, but which kind of emerged from a group making activity. But maybe you could talk about that work before we close.
So I'm thinking about the connection to my motherland and my families, and my mother's side is from North Korea. Because before 1953, it was one country, right? So it's not like, oh my gosh, she's from North Korea. It's nothing to be scared of me, So dumplings are kind of northern region food. So my mom, made dumplings. It was kind of ritual at home. So we made a lot of dumplings. I had an estranged cousin who I haven't seen for 30 years. To the point that even if I run into her at H Mart, I would not recognize her. But we met because of the power of Facebook. We met. And it was weird. It was so strange. And we were just talking, and when we shared the dumpling recipe, it was perfectly matching because grandmother taught all her daughters, and my mom had the same recipe as her mother. And that was first time that I felt like I'm connected to this person that I can't even recognize as my cousin. So dumpling that experience kind of made me think about dumplings a lot, and through that how I'm connected. And I started hosting just dumpling making parties out of my studio, and my friends love coming and making and teaching. And also because my mom's aging, I really wanted to get her thumbprints on the forms too. But as soon as I told her that it was for the art exhibition, she was trying to make it really pretty. And dumpling also, I share with you, Leilani, that there's in Korean saying that if you make pretty dumplings, you will have pretty daughters. So she was always, having me as a daughter, she was always trying to make pretty dumplings. So there's another connection with the mother and, the lineage. So as I was keep making these dumplings many times, when I went to Anderson Ranch, I make it with my other fellow residents there. And they had a beautiful kiln yard with the wood firing kiln. So I tried it out and learned how each dumpling depends on where it's located within the kiln. And knowing whatever that's in the kiln together, it all influence how that air flows within that. So in that 2000 Fahrenheit, these all these objects are in there together, influencing each other's, in terms of how the glaze turned out and all that. So these dumplings went in without any glaze, and basically were other pieces glaze, or just how it was fired and air moved. That's why, and none of them are, exactly the same. And it really made sense for me to make it as a dumpling diaspora project and to present it like a flock of bird, kind of migrating and flying away, and yeah.
Beautiful way of encapsulating a lot of even in the making process, a lot of the questions that you're getting at, and I love that you so beautifully fuse those. And I think maybe to close, and we will have some time for questions from the audience, so please think of those. I wanted to ask if there's any other lingering questions that this project has left you with that you feel like you'll explore for your next or for future, or like what are you excited to work on coming off of this project?
I mean, definitely, I was working on the complex silent piece until the day before. Way before. That day before, way before. But I am very interested in, like when you approached me about, I'm thinking about the show about the language. I didn't even know how my projects fit in. And I'm kind of discovering, the translations, mistranslation, and that's even a big gap, right? And all this in-between spaces that I live in is making sense in many different ways. And I find that really alive and engaging for me to explore more. So I'm excited to maybe make more of that and incorporating sound too. Yeah.
Well, a lot to look forward to. Thank you, Sammy.
Yeah.
This has been really exciting. Just even for me, I'm learning more about your practice, even though we've been in dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just so special to have these moments to really think about the work.
Thank you, Leilani, because like I said, I was heightened, everything is meant to be magical. And the way you approached me after I returned from Fulbright and giving me this exhibition opportunity to explore everything in depth, to take, to the new direction and new projects. Thank you.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.